Hey guys, this is Grant Evans, your favorite Utah realtor. Today we are here at the closing table again with John Harrison of Guarantee Rate Affinity to give an update, or I guess a recap of who John is. John is an investor of multiple properties. He is a lender with Guarantee Rate Affinity. He does a lot of loans. 14-time award-winning mortgage originator. Lives here in West Mountain, Utah. We love him. We are going to talk today about using the HELOC for an investment property. So I wanted to talk to John today about using the HELOC to be able to buy investment properties, because I feel like it's a really good tool, but at the same time, feel like maybe even first-time investors kind of jump into it thinking this is going to be a lot of money. So now we talked before actually recording here, so I'm already kind of spoiled some things a little bit here, or I'm going to. But I guess what advice would you give to the people that are looking to buy investment property and want to use a HELOC?
So basically what I tell people is I have a HELOC on every property I own, whether it's my primary residence, second home, or an investment property. I like to be able to tap into my equity. The average person here in Utah has about $200,000 in equity in their homes, but they've got great rates, so they don't want to refinance and do cash out. So basically what I tell people is, and we're seeing a lot more people come and say, hey, rates are high, but I know that values of homes have come down quite a bit, and I want to start looking at what can I do to invest? Can I buy a rental property? Can I buy a duplex or something like that? And so what we have is a 30-year fixed amortized HELOC that has a 10-year interest-only payment, which basically gives you the lowest payment possible that you can then tap into up to 90% of the equity in your home, so that you can then use that as your down payment to buy an investment property. Now, you can get yourself in trouble. This is almost like a credit card, because you can pay it down, use it, pay it down. But if you go out and use it frivolously, or buy TVs with it and things like that, you can get yourself into trouble. So you need to be disciplined. But, for that person who's looking to buy an investment, the biggest thing I tell them is get the line of credit open. It doesn't cost anything unless you borrow money from it. So the initial cost to set up is very minimal. And then get with your realtor, like with you, Grant, to go out there and say, okay, now let's find the right property, because you can't jump on any property that pops up because it won't cash flow. So it's all about that cash flow, because you do have to pay that equity line back. So you want to make sure you're getting into something that's going to pay for itself, and maybe even give you a little bit extra to put down on that money that you're taking out of the line of credit.
Right. And so you and I were kind of talking about before we're at this position right now of recording. I had a client who had a HELOC on their home. They used it to put in a kind of a covered awning. Now, when we went to go sell their house, like I told him, you still have to pay off the HELOC, but at the closing table, you can kind of tell that he kind of regretted having the HELOC, just because he was going to that was equity in home that he could have had in his pocket, right? So now we were talking about this before. So he sold his house to build a house. I think it probably would have been pretty cool anyway to be able to use that HELOC, okay, to, like, say the $100,000 you have in your HELOC, give that to the builder to kind of start the construction loan process, and then when you sell the house, you give whatever is left in equity. So you're kind of double dipping, kind of treating it like you did sell the home, have that $200,000 in equity, and be able to kind of use all of that rather than him having to sell his property, pay down the HELOC. Now he's only got $100,000 in equity that now he's only put towards his. Well,
basically the thing is, if you really want to get started on that new house without having your house sold, the equity line gives you the ability to tap into that equity that you haven't gotten yet, because you're going to sell the home. Obviously you're going to pay that back, but it just gives you the availability to use the money now. And let's say you're not going to sell the house for another 2 or 3 months. Well, that gives you an extra 2 or 3 months to have that builder going to get your permits, getting your plans going, maybe getting your basement put in, whatever they're going to do. It allows them to get a lot of things set up, beforehand. So it's still you're still going to make the same amount of money. It just lets you leverage your money in a different way.
Yeah, and being able to just use it effectively rather than having to miss out on having to pay that down, and then you just have only whatever's left minus the loans.
Yeah, and like your person who put the awning on, the biggest thing I look at too is the equity line. What are you using it for? So you can talk to your realtor, and you can go through before you do any of those, renovations or additions that you're doing on your home. You need to make sure you know how much are you going to get back out of doing that to your house. If you're just doing it for your family and it's a pleasurable thing and, hey, it's a great thing, you just need to realize that some things you do on your homes, you're not going to get back 100% of what your investment is. Now, if you're in the home for a few more years, the enjoyment factor, is part of that. But a majority of the things that you do on your home, you do not get back dollar for dollar what you spent, especially basements. And we find that a lot is, you'll be spending right now $85 a square foot on your basement. But when that appraiser comes in and he only gives you a value of $40 to $50 on the square foot, you're not going to be very happy. So you need to realize that before you finish that basement, why are you finishing it? In the case for a lot of people is they're going to want to finish it their way anyway. So unless you're doing it for your own family, I would never finish a basement to get it for resale value because you're going to lose.
Yeah. Well, let's just take, for example, I'm going to pull my calculator now because that piques my interest. So I have some remodel guys that they charge about $60 a square foot. Mm-hmm. So if the basement, 1,500 square feet, if it's a 3,000 square foot Rambler, mm-hmm. So 1,500 times $60 a square foot, you're looking at $90,000 in just labor to finish that. So maybe using a HELOC for the basement probably wouldn't be ideal. No. I mean, I think it'll definitely help sell the house if the basement is finished, but it's not going to increase your house value by $100,000.
Yeah, you're not going to make the money back. So that's why you always have to look at why are you doing it. If it's because you're going to be there for the next few years, like the awning, if you're going to be there for the next 5 years and it's going to be for family and things like that, you know what? It's worth the investment. No, you're not going to get X back, 100% back. Hopefully the house value is going to continue to rise, but I would never tell you to go out. Like I had one of my neighbors, they went on their house before they listed it and they went and redid the whole deck and they went and redid some things in the house. Well, the new people came in, bought it. They tore the deck down 2 weeks after they bought the home. And I just sat there and cried almost because I know they spent about $20,000 plus thinking that would be a big selling point. And the person who came in didn't like it because they had small children and the deck was on top of the home and they didn't feel safe. So they took the deck down. So there was $20,000+ that the seller spent that they weren't going to get back really because I don't think it affected the value much. And then the next person just tore it down.
That stinks. Yeah. But let's transition over to the investment portion of it. So being able to use a HELOC to buy an investment property. Let's say like this is something I would like to do. I want to be able to take out a HELOC on my house and let's say it's $500,000. Okay. And I bought it for $4 million. So let's say, I can use 90% of the value. Let's say I can get, $90,000 out of my HELOC. I can use that towards an investment or a vacation home in Montana somewhere on Flathead Lake. I have to kind of figure out though, because I'm still going to have a loan. I would still have my primary one, the HELOC loan on it, and so it's got to be like, okay, vacation home. But then I feel like my loan or my payment is going to be like $3,000 a month for a vacation home, and so it doesn't sound appealing. It doesn't make me want to do it. Which I think a lot of people kind of feel like I do want to buy investment properties. I do want to be a real estate investor, but I'm scared that my payment's going to be $3,000 to $4,000. And it's not going to make sense.
Yeah, and that's why we tell people that's where you have to look at your numbers. Sit with your loan officer, sit with your realtor, and set up expectations that are real. Because the reality is you could spend too much, and then you're not going to be getting it back. So if you're buying a second home, you've got to be able to qualify now for a second house. That's why most of the time I'm telling people is you're going to be using the HELOC for an investment property because you're going to be able to say, okay, I'm putting down 25% from this equity line. The new property, then we can use 75% of the rental income that's going to be coming in from that home to offset the payment so that you qualify. But that's where you have to look at, okay, what am I making? So if my new house payment, let's say is $2,000, I know I'm going to be able to rent it for $2,500. This equity line, I took $90,000. I have $90,000. Let's say I used $50,000 of it. Well, what's my payment for that equity line? That's why we try to push, this 10-year interest only because the payment's going to be much lower. So let's say it's $500. Well, guess what? Now you're washing, and now if you don't have a renter, obviously you're going to be in the hole, but otherwise you're going to be able to cover that $2,500, that you're getting in rent money. You're going to cover that $2,000 payment that you have on the first mortgage for the rental, and you're going to have the $500 that you're covering on the equity line. So it's all a numbers game. You have to make sure where it is, and you need to have some savings too. I always tell people you need to have 6 months of savings. You need to make sure you get a home warranty or be ready for any of those things that come up on your home that something breaks. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Speaking of home warranties, I kind of want to put a throw in there for IBEX. I have both my houses on IBEX home warranty, and I love it. So shout out to IBEX. I don't know if they'll ever listen to this, but it'd be really cool to think that they would. So let's kind of, I think that, like what you're saying, a first-time investor should be able to sit down with you and say, okay, look, we can qualify for a second home of an investment property. The most that we can get is, let's just say $300,000. Okay. Now in Utah, that's not very many options. That's, in more rural areas, that's going to maybe be a house, but in more rural areas, I guess that's even going to be a townhome.
Duplex. Yeah, you get a duplex in some of them.
Yeah. I would love to find a $300,000 duplex.
We got them in Vernal. 350,000 is where an average duplex is.
And then when do you rent those out for?
Right now, I just did one for one of my friends, helping them set up their investments, and they bought it for $340,000. They put 25% down, and they're renting it out both sides. They're getting $2,200 a month. Their mortgage payment is $1,700, so they're able to cover the payment, and they actually have that extra $500 that they're using to cover the money they borrowed on the equity line.
So they're profiting $500 a month.
They're not profiting because they got to use it to pay on the equity line. So they're really not profiting.
So they're breaking
anything.
even.
So they're breaking even. But for them, they're like, well, the values we feel are going to continue to go up, and we're using some of our money finally to do something. Because otherwise, we're just sitting on a house that we own, our house free and clear. It's worth $500,000, and we don't owe anything on it, but we don't have the money either. So we got $500,000 sitting that we're not using to better us for retirement. So this is a way to do that. And so they've got a nice little, nest egg there saved up because they're not using all the equity line up. They're using a portion of it, but they're basically cash flowing. Now, if something blows up, that's why they have a home warranty to cover those things. So they're paying their $50 for the person to come out and check the house out, but they're going to fix the air conditioner or replace it, or fix the furnace or replace it. You're hoping to get into a property that, with a home warranty will last a few years while you're building up that equity. And in their case, they're taking some of their income money because they don't have a house payment per se. And they're going, hey, let's just make a house payment on that equity line to pay it down even faster. So it just depends on the individual. And I would say every single person who sits down with me and with you as their realtor, it's let's look down and see, what are your goals? What's your plan? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the long-term objective of why we're getting the HELOC? So you don't get yourself into trouble.
Yeah. And we were talking about this too. You need to be careful with the HELOC because there is a possibility anyway of a short sale.
Oh, there is.
Like, let's say, like with my house, $500,000, I get a $90,000 HELOC on it. My loan changes from like $380. I think that's how much I owe on it, to $470. And if I can't sell my house for $470,
you're upside down.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
I'm screwed.
That's what we happened in 07, 08, 09. That's where we saw a lot of people have gotten the equity lines out. The house values were up. Well, then the house values dropped. And what was crazy is they would then take some of the banks would say, okay, well, your equity line's $150,000. We know the house isn't worth that anymore. You've only used 10 of it, so we're dropping your limit to cash out to 10 now. So now you've maxed out. You don't have any reserves, and you're in a situation where, if you're not moving, it really didn't matter. Like on my personal home, my house dropped $1 million. Okay. And my wife was kind of freaking out a little bit. And I said to her, we're not moving anywhere. It doesn't matter what our house is worth. As long as we make our mortgage payment, eventually the values will come back. And they said, oh, they'll never come back. Well, the reality is, guys, we're 21% over what those numbers were, 14 years ago, more than what we were. So my house is actually worth a lot more now. But unless you're moving or have a job change, you should be fine. But if you have something come up like that, you know what? You could be upside down. That's why you need to know what you're getting into before you get an equity line. That's what we say. Always talk to people who know what they're doing.
Hold, and hold. Like in case of a worst case scenario, you always got to hold.
Yep.
We are out of time right now, but I'm going to throw this out there for you, John. What is your prediction for the 2023 housing market?
We're expecting housing to continue to slow down a little bit for new builds. We think that rates, you'll see, we've been talking since May, June, that we felt that by November we would finally see a little reprieve in inflation, and that would help rates to go down. We just had our biggest day yesterday. People are actually putting this on their screenshots, on their computers, on their phones. We had the best day we've ever had in probably 7 months for rates dropping almost 0.5%. We expect that we will see some more increases to prime in December and all that, but they will probably be less than they were predicting, which is going to help rates to continue to come down. We're expecting to be in the 5 to 5.5% range by next summer. So you'll see some of it coming down as inflation really slows down. but that's going to mean unemployment's going up. There's going to be people suffering, but that's going to help the economy, unfortunately. So just know that with those rates coming down, you're going to see more people going, oh, let's start buying now before values go back up.
But then you're going to have people that are unemployed.
That's correct. And
so even prices could still go down if people can't even buy houses.
Yep, but you might see some more short sales, especially in some states. But, it's an opportunity. You want to be ready to buy. I did an equity line yesterday. I took an application because I said, look, they're like, well, we want to buy in January, February. I'm like, look, let's get your equity line set up now. Let's go through what you're trying to accomplish. And then when January, February comes, you can jump on that property that comes up because somebody's like, I've got a job change. I got to move. I'm willing to lose a little bit of that equity that I got over the last 3-4 years, because like I said, a lot of people don't owe. If they've owned their house for more than 3 years, they have a ton of equity in it. And so they're able to play with what they're going to make on the home for you to be able to get into it.
Okay. So John's expecting better interest rates. So we are out of time. Thank you so much, John, for coming to the closing table today and talking about HELOCs. If you are interested in learning more about HELOCs, you can contact me or John. John, how can people contact you?
Best way is call me on my cell phone, 801-404-9796. You can email me at jharrison@grarate.com.
And you also just got on social media.
Yeah, we're on a lot of social
media. So we're on
now.
What's your Instagram handle?
I don't know. I think it's John, G-R-A.
Just type in John Harrison. You'll probably
G-R-A.
find it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, you guys, for coming. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
See ya.